Namaste and welcome to another great video in Mike and Connor's homestead. Today we're going to go through episode 5 of our aquaponics series and discuss pest control. A real tricky subject with aquaponics, given that aquaponics are a situation where you don't want to put any kind of chemical-based pesticide, anything that could kill the fish, basically. And so it is a subject I find to be very interesting because I don't want to use any kind of chemical that I would eat that could potentially kill me in 10 to 20 years or 30 or 40 years or whatever. I just don't want to dabble in that. So I'll start the episode off by giving a shout out today. I got a text from Mark this morning. This is not the same Mark that gave me the bees. This is a Mark that I've worked with in the past, and really great guy. Wanted to give a shout out to him and his family for loving my videos. So I'm giving my shout out to Mark, Colette, Sammy, Gracie, Marcus, and Anthony. You guys rock. You came to this homestead before and you all really enjoyed it. Anthony wanted to try and do some work here, kind of get a feel for a good old-fashioned honest day's labor, and I haven't taken him up on that, but I may do that with you in the future, Anthony, if you actually want to do that. But hey, no pressure. So with that, let's talk about pests. So common pests that I've dealt with in this system: slugs, whiteflies or gnats. I've dealt with a lot of spiders, which I actually kind of like because they can kind of kill things that I don't want in there. Never had any issues with aphids in this system, but I'm sure that aphids are a problem. I haven't had them yet, but I've had my fair share of pests, so you know, if it's not one, it's another. So to deal with gnats, there's two really good ways, or whiteflies, of course. So there's these sticky strips that I put down, and eventually those end up filling up with gnats. They land on them, they can't get off, and then they eventually die. And when it gets really hot out, they just love it because it's humid in there. Somehow they can reproduce and get all crazy, and they end up kind of eating the tomatoes a little bit. They just are a nuisance overall. So the other thing I use for gnats is I use a thing called neem oil, and that's Neem. And it's a concentrated kind of an oil, and you dilute it in water. It kind of smells like peanuts. It's not bad for the fish, but the whiteflies or gnats hate it. It is probably one of the last things they want to be around, so you can get rid of them with those two remedies, and they both work really well. I've noticed I brought in ladybugs earlier this year into that infested peach tree. If you look at my grand tour episode, you will see that tree. I brought in about 300, 400 ladybugs to remedy that problem, and I have seen a huge dissipation in my aphid population in my yard. And the ladybugs have also somehow journeyed into the aquaponics setup. I've seen a lot of ladybugs in there, which I like because they're eating any potential pests that would go in there. And just to give you an idea of how good ladybugs are with pest control, a single ladybug will eat 40 aphids a day. And if you have 300 ladybugs, that's a lot of aphids. So the tough thing with ladybugs, if you bring them to your house, is they'll eat all the aphids, and then when there's no more food, they go somewhere else. And you want to keep them at your house as long as possible to continue that pest, you know, just not having the pests so prevalent, especially aphids. So what I do if I'm going to bring in ladybugs is I spray them with either sugar water, you could use a soda, and you just spray them really good. And what that does is it prevents the ladybug from being able to open its wings. So it has to stay there for 2-3 days until it can get that sugary water off of itself, and then they leave. But if you do get ladybugs, they normally come in a little box. You want to dump all of the stuff on there. Normally they're in like a sawdusty kind of material, because if you dump all of that sawdust on the ground and everything, the larva of the ladybug ends up in your yard. And so the ladybugs that are adults may leave, but the next generation that hatches from larvae will stay normally, and you can see them. And I thought that I was done, that all the ladybugs left in 3 days, but then now it's been about 3 weeks to a month, and I'm seeing those baby ladybugs all over the place, and that is awesome. Now I know that my 10, 15 bucks that I spent on ladybugs will last me the whole season, and that's a really good thing for me. And that just doesn't help with aquaponics, but it helps with everything. So, really good stuff. For the slug, that is a difficult pest to control for me. I'm not sure if they like neem oil, but I've seen them, and I don't know how they got into my system. Somehow they journeyed here. All kinds of animals have journeyed, well, insects have journeyed into the aquaponics greenhouse. I think it's because the temperature is warmer. Also, it's more humid, and it's just a better place for life to live. I've had mice that have journeyed in, and I've set traps, and I've eliminated that problem, but I still have a variety of spiders. Now, like I said earlier, I like the spiders because they control other pests that I don't want, and I'd rather have spiders than the alternative. But if you don't like spiders and you're interested in getting rid of them, we use peppermint oil. So you, again, just use a couple drops of peppermint oil, mix it with water, and just spray it around the whole area. The spiders hate peppermint oil, and it smells really good as well. I mean, you get a nice peppermint fragrance. We don't just spray it in our greenhouse, we spray it in our whole entire house. My wife does it once a week at least, and I always know when she did it because it smells great in the house, and I haven't seen a spider inside of our house in probably a month, so I'm really happy about that. She takes care of it. She really likes everything that smells good, and so you always get kind of a fishy scent in your aquaponics. It's not horrible, but if you were to spray peppermint oil and you're sensitive to smell and you didn't like spiders, there you go. You solved a bunch of problems with one solution. Now, the kind of spiders that I've seen in my aquaponics setup, mainly I had a really big issue with black widows, which is a little alarming. They were getting in the creases of the EPDM pond liner, and then I saw some nesting underneath the table, and that is a little concerning to me. So I actually stapled all of the EPDM pond liners in so that the black widows can't get in there and nest anymore. I don't want to see them. I'm constantly taking the webs down because that is a little bit dangerous, especially for Connor, so I always kind of inspect it prior to letting him in. So, but you know, they don't want to bug you unless you're really in their stuff, so you know, it's just one of those things you got to be really careful about. I mean, in the summer it gets really hot, so I fold over this nice visqueen for the greenhouse, and I want to get a mesh netting to try and keep more bugs out. But it's a tough one because I almost want to leave it open because I have the bees, and the bees are going to come in and pollinate all this stuff. I feel like if I maybe put a screen material here, I will have issues with the flowers getting pollinated. Because you could have hundreds of flowers on a tomato tree, but if you don't have anything to pollinate it, it may not fruit. And the whole reason we plant vegetables is for fruiting. So I leave it open. I'm kind of really diligent about that because if I'm going to do all this work, I really want to make sure I get the benefits, which is the fruit. So with that, I'm going to kind of call it a day. But you know, as always, mahalo for watching. Connor couldn't make it today for either video. I did a lumberjack video this morning. He's in Lake Tahoe with his mom, so they're having a good time while I'm stuck here moving wood. But hey, you got to make the best of what you got, and it's been a very efficient day. So again, if you guys like, make sure you give the thumbs up and subscribe, and I hope you all have a great weekend. I will be back tomorrow morning bright and early with a bees episode 3. I'm going to go into the hive and see what's going on in there, so stay tuned, and if you tune in tomorrow, you can see the newest bee episode as well. Thank you.